and evil. Adolf Hitler was one of the most brutal dictators in history, responsible for the deaths of millions. Yet many people don't know that he deeply loved his German shepherd, Blondie. He was also a vegetarian and enacted strict animal welfare laws. Does any of this make his atrocities less horrific? Absolutely not. But it shatters one of the most dangerous illusions we hold, the belief that people are either completely good or completely evil. Take a moment. Think of someone you truly hate. It could be a politician, a neighbor, or an old friend. Can your mind honestly acknowledge even one genuine virtue they possess? Now think of someone you admire deeply, someone you almost idolize. Can you admit even one real flaw they have? If your mind immediately refuses either exercise, if it rushes to defend your beliefs instead of questioning them, you're in dangerous territory. You probably think your opinions are entirely your own, but the uncomfortable truth is that much of what you believe has been shaped long before you consciously chose it. The Asch conformity experiment. In 1951, psychologist Solomon Asch conducted one of the most famous experiments in psychology. 8 people sat in a room and were shown several lines on a board. The task was simple: identify which line was the longest. The answer was obvious, but there was a twist. 7 of the 8 participants were actors instructed to give the wrong answer. The 8th person was the real participant. When everyone else confidently chose the incorrect line, around 75% of participants ignored what they clearly saw with their own eyes and agreed with the group. Not because they believed it was true, because they didn't want to stand out. Your beliefs are shaped in much the same way. Your family, your friends, your culture, television, social media, your environment quietly plants ideas in your mind. Then another psychological force takes over: confirmation bias. Your brain becomes like a security guard, allowing in only the information that agrees with your existing beliefs while rejecting everything else. Nobody is perfect. Consider Mahatma Gandhi. Today, he's remembered as a symbol of peace, yet some of his early writings contain views that would now be considered racist. He could also be harsh and authoritarian with his own children. Does that erase his contributions? No. It simply reminds us that he was human. Real people exist in shades of gray. If you can only see heroes and villains, society has handed you black and white glasses through which you view the world. Cognitive dissonance. Imagine someone who smokes every day. They know smoking causes cancer. The warning is printed directly on every cigarette pack. Yet they continue smoking. When asked why, they might say, "My grandfather smoked 2 packs a day and lived to 90. They're not necessarily stupid. They're experiencing cognitive dissonance. This occurs when actions and beliefs conflict. Instead of changing the behavior, the brain often changes the belief or invents a story that makes the behavior seem reasonable. Psychologists Carol Tavris and Elliot Aronson explain this beautifully in Mistakes Were Made, But Not by Me. People don't like admitting they're wrong. They'd rather justify their mistakes. Remember the story of the fox and the sour grapes? Unable to reach the grapes, the fox convinces itself they were sour anyway. That's cognitive dissonance in its purest form. When false beliefs become stronger. In the 1950s, psychologist Leon Festinger studied a cult convinced the world would end on December 21st and that aliens would rescue only them. Members sold their homes, quit their jobs, and gave away their possessions. December 21st came and went. Nothing happened. Logically, they should have accepted they were mistaken. Instead, the cult leader claimed their prayers had persuaded the aliens to spare the Earth. Amazingly, the members believed him. Many became even more committed than before. The deeper people invest in a belief, the harder it becomes to abandon it. Sometimes truth doesn't set people free. Sometimes it blinds them. That's why arguments alone rarely change deeply held beliefs. The Semmelweis reflex. In 1847, Dr. Ignaz Semmelweis discovered that doctors who washed their hands before delivering babies dramatically reduced maternal deaths. Today, this seems obvious. At the time, many doctors ridiculed him. Why? Because accepting his findings meant admitting that their own unwashed hands had caused countless deaths. Their pride couldn't tolerate that reality, so they rejected the evidence. Psychologists later described a related phenomenon called the Backfire Effect. When people's core beliefs are threatened, overwhelming evidence often makes them defend those beliefs even more fiercely. In many arguments, you're not debating someone's logic. You're challenging their identity. False memories. Psychologist Elizabeth Loftus demonstrated how easily memories can be manipulated. She convinced many participants that as children, they had once become lost in a shopping mall. The event never happened. Yet more than a quarter of participants accepted it as real and even added vivid details of their own. Memory isn't a perfect recording. It's surprisingly easy to reshape. And if memories can be influenced, beliefs can too. Small commitments change identity. Robert Cialdini describes the principle of commitment and consistency. If you want someone to make a huge commitment, don't ask for it immediately. Start with something tiny. This is known as the foot in the door technique. In one experiment, homeowners who first agreed to display a small "Drive Carefully" sticker were far more likely later to accept an enormous, ugly billboard on their lawn promoting the same message. A small action changes identity. Once identity shifts, future decisions begin aligning with it. How ordinary people become extremists. In 1967, teacher Ron Jones conducted the third wave experiment to demonstrate how Nazi Germany could emerge. On day 1, students simply sat up straight and followed strict classroom rules. On day 2, they adopted a special salute. On day 3, membership cards were issued and students began monitoring one another. Within 5 days, ordinary students had formed an authoritarian movement. Some intimidated classmates. Others reported anyone who broke the rules. The experiment had to be stopped. Radicalization rarely begins with extreme actions. It begins with small commitments. A like, a share, a donation. One tiny step at a time. Nobody thinks they're the villain. History reveals an unsettling truth. Nazis didn't see themselves as monsters. They believed they were creating a better world. The British Empire often justified colonialism as civilizing others. Modern terrorists frequently believe they are carrying out God's will. Psychology teaches us something deeply uncomfortable. No one is the villain in their own story. Even the worst people usually see themselves as heroes. The most powerful 3-letter word. At the beginning, I promised you a 3-letter word capable of dismantling almost any illusion. That word is why. Don't tell people they're wrong. Ask them why they believe what they believe. Then ask, why do you trust that source? Then, why are you confident that source is correct? By the third why, many people realize they've never truly examined the foundations of their own beliefs. Their certainty begins to crack. Not because you defeated them, because they began questioning themselves. Use this technique on yourself too. Why winning arguments feels good. Have you ever wondered why winning an argument feels so satisfying? It's not only your ego, it's chemistry. When you prove someone wrong, your brain releases dopamine, the same neurotransmitter involved in gambling, addictive scrolling, and many other rewarding behaviors. Often we're not chasing truth. We're chasing the pleasure of feeling right. The next time you're desperate to win an argument, ask yourself, am I searching for truth, or am I simply feeding my dopamine? The final challenge. If you believe you're completely immune to manipulation, that's probably your greatest illusion. The most dangerous form of brainwashing is believing you've escaped it entirely. Here's a challenge. 1. Think of the person or ideology you dislike the most. Find one genuine positive quality. If your mind resists, notice that resistance. 2. Within the next 24 hours, if someone passionately argues about a controversial topic, don't argue back. Simply ask, how do you know that with such certainty? Then stay silent. Let them think. Finally, remember the words often attributed to the philosopher entity, people. Bertrand R. Bertrand Russell. The world is that fools and fanatics are always so certain of themselves, and wiser people so full of doubts. Absolute certainty is often the sign of a closed mind. Doubt is where thinking begins. The next time your mind labels someone as 100% good or 100% evil, pause. Because in that moment, you may not be thinking freely. You may simply be celebrating the invisible chains of your own certainty